Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. It's previewing time. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for hanging out today. Coming up on the show, we're going to look at the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NBA playoffs, as we're going to do the bracket challenge to send us off into the postseason. I know we're cutting it close for a couple of the games and a couple of the series to get going, but still want to dive in and get that rolling. Plus, we're going to finish up our UFC conversations for the week as we do a bit of a stock watch after UFC 327 and take a look at who the main event fighters should fight after that event. And then we will get into some of the wrestling. A lot of wrestling stuff is going to be over on Living Room Lariat, the wrestling podcast from Couch Potato Diary. The main wrestling stuff lives here, but a bit more in-depth is happening over on Living Room Lariat, and you can get that same place you got this, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. So let's dive right in. It is the best time of year for hockey fans. The Stanley Cup playoffs are here, and we have some unreal matchups for round number one. Let's dive in. Let's make our picks to see who's going to the Stanley Cup Final, or at least the second round, anyway. All right, so it is playoff bracket time. So going to just quickly here pull up what we're looking at, and yes, so the bracket here. I definitely need to change this overlay a little bit, but that's fine. We will work with that as this kind of goes along here. But all right, let's dive right in, shall we? Just a sec. I just want to see. This is being a little bit weird on me. Oh, no, that is not what I wanted to do, but it's working anyway, so we're fine. Okay, so round number one. This one, I don't think we have to put a lot of thought into this. Colorado is a better hockey team than the LA Kings are. Now, LA has shown that they can be pretty good defensively. They've obviously shown that they're good at playing in one-goal games, setting the record for most overtime games played in the NHL, but Colorado is just better. And I don't see the Kings being able to slow down Colorado enough, nor do I see the Kings being able to score enough to be able to hang with the Avalanche. And a big piece of this is Colorado getting healthy right now. And I do think having, and I guess we'll see about Kadri, but having Makar have a bit of time off there to work his way back into NHL shape, and then to see how NHL shape he was, especially at a couple of those rushes against the Calgary Flames. I feel like having those guys have a bit of a break is actually going to help, because this has been a absolute grind to get to this marathon that is the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I think having him get a little bit of that break is going to be helpful. So I like the Colorado Avalanche there, and I think they sweep them. I like the Avalanche in 4. Up next, probably the series of the second round, with all due respect to the folks out east, but probably the series of the second round is the Dallas Stars taking on the Minnesota Wild. There is absolutely a world where this is a Western Conference final in a different setup. I know Colorado is the cream of the crop, but these two teams, make no mistake about it, are elite, high-level hockey teams, and there isn't a whole lot that separates these two, sorry. Dallas, a little bit banged up on the blue line, with Heiskanen dealing with some things. I still like this forward group for Dallas, and this is like breaking down this matchup. I like so much of what Minnesota has going on, right? Like Kaprizov, obviously. You have a couple of electric players on that blue line, and you have a very good tandem between the pipes, but I kind of like what Dallas has going just a little bit more. I like the Dallas forward group just a little bit more than Minnesota's. I think there's just a little bit more high-level depth that Dallas can rely on compared to what Minnesota has going for it. Minnesota, not a one-line team by any stretch of the imagination, but they are closer to that than Dallas is. And the Dallas young players, they have been in these spots before, and they have been able to succeed to a certain degree anyway. I like the Dallas forward group just a bit more. I think I do like Minnesota's blue line, especially after the Quinn Hughes acquisition, just a touch more than what Dallas has going on there, but it's very close. And I would take Ottinger over the two goalies with Minnesota. So it's going to be a grind of a series, but we are going to take the Dallas Stars here, going chalk with our first two picks. Then down in the Pacific Division, it is the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Utah Mammoth. Vegas winning the Pacific Division. I am still underwhelmed by this hockey team. I still think that they have troubles with depth scoring. They are going to need their high-end guys to be able to play like high-end players. And I think they can, but Utah, they are quick. They are young. They're explosive. Vejmelka might be the best goalie in this series. If that's the case, Utah wins. Like, Vegas is going to need, whether it's Hart or whoever, they're going to need them to step up and be the best goalie here. If Vejmelka is, I think Utah wins. And so I'm going the upset with this one. I'm going to say the Utah Mammoth make their way into the Pacific Final with a series win, a close one, 7 over Vegas. And then we get down to what is going to be a really fun one with Edmonton taking on Anaheim. Obviously, a lot of this series, Oilers and Ducks, focuses on the health of Leon Draisaitl and what he is going to be able to give you. Anaheim has limped their way to the finish line. It has not been great over the last little bit, and if it were a veteran team, you could say, well, you just gotta, they're just going to flip a switch. Everything's going to be fine. I don't believe that to be the case with this Ducks side. They are young, and this, like we said, this has been a grind of a season, kind of wearing on them a little bit. I do think getting a little bit of extra time into Monday is going to help them, but I still like a lot of pieces on this team, though, and I think if you could just stack them up side by side, like Edmonton obviously has the two high-level guys, but Anaheim, there's a lot of talent on this forward group, and they can beat you with their blue line, but it's not a very good defensive team. Carlson there helps them out. The thing that I think can turn this is Dostal can steal a series for you. Not just games, a series for you. And I think he might. There's absolutely some haterade happening here, and Oilers fans, don't fret. Not that I think you would, but don't fret. I picked against the Oilers in every series of the playoffs last year, and it went pretty well for you guys right up until the end. So I have Anaheim making it to the second round in a 6-game series. So we have to predict the games here. I said Colorado in 4. I went Dallas in 7. I went Utah in 7. And I'm going to go Anaheim in 6. So that is the Western Conference side of the bracket. Now, let me just, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Let me just drag this. Oh, great, this is not going to work in the way that I want it to, is it? Okay, so you get to see a little bit on the fly putting this together. There we go. So, Eastern Conference side now, we go with the Buffalo Sabres taking on the Boston Bruins. Buffalo, phenomenal season, winning the division. Boston, I do think being slept on a little bit. You hear a lot of, Pasternak and all them. It's like Geeky scored 39 this year. Swayman could have got Vezina votes in a different season and might still anyway. He's been very, very good for them this year. I don't think they have the firepower to compete with what Buffalo is going to be able to do. I do think that they're going to be able to steal a couple games in this series, and it's going to be a very good learning experience for Buffalo, but I do have the Sabres moving on to the Eastern Conference semifinal. Tampa Bay taking on Montreal, the other marquee series of the first round, and I don't think there's a whole lot separating these two teams. The one thing that there would be is experience. Obviously, that's on the Tampa Bay side. I have loved how Tampa Bay's forward group has played. I mean, all season long. Kucherov, again, he's going to get Hart votes, but I really like lately the intensity that they have been able to ramp up with and how they've been able to play in those games. But Montreal, when they've played here late in the season, has been able to go step for step with those guys. And they have maybe the most dangerous line in the NHL when you look at Slavkovsky, Suzuki, and Cole Caulfield. Dobson being hurt sucks, but they do have a lot of talent on that blue line to be able to backfill. And I think Dobish is playing some very good hockey right now. I think it's Montreal's time. I'm going the Habs, and we'll do the games here in a second, but I'm going the Habs in 7. Up next, you got Carolina taking on the Ottawa Senators. I want to do the upset pick with Ottawa so badly, but this is still a good Carolina team, and I know that they have run into some problems at various points in the playoffs, but they are very much made for this. And I do think that they can play the Ottawa style better than what Ottawa can do. The one X factor on both sides is between the pipes, right? Like the Carolina goaltending situation has been inconsistent and not one that you can rely on in the playoffs for a very long time. Ullmark has been wildly inconsistent this season. When either is on, both are very, very good. But when either is off, it's incredibly debilitating. I do think Carolina just squeaks through, but I think this is an absolute rock fight of a series. And then we get down to the no one saw this coming portion of the bracket with Pittsburgh taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. Philadelphia, you love what they've been able to do. The thing that I like about this team is that it's spread out, right? Like no one on their team got more than 70 points this season, but a bunch got over like 45 or 50. Like they just have had a lot of guys who are contributing, and now Porter Martone stepping in and kind of doing the same thing, just keeping up with the current of everything going on in Philadelphia. For Pittsburgh, this has been a tremendous job in team building for Kyle Dubas and how he's been able to just win a lot of small trades along the way, building that depth up, and now all of a sudden you have a pretty good hockey team going for you here. The goaltending situation, it is advantage Philadelphia. Dan Vladar has been excellent this season. I saw a video saying, like, could Vladar get Hart votes? That's too far. But fifth place Vezina, if you wanted to throw him in there, absolutely. He has been tremendous this year. Skinner, playoff experience, not all of it great, but playoff experience, I think advantage Philadelphia there. But the rest of it, I just like Pittsburgh more. I do like the Penguins, and I have them in 5. So quickly here, I got Buffalo coming out of this one in 6, Montreal in 7, Ottawa in 7, and I have Pittsburgh in 5. So those are my picks for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Let's get into the rest of the bracket here just really quick. We got Buffalo taking on the Montreal Canadiens. Again, a lot of firepower on both sides of this. I think the checkmark to me that is the decider is I like Montreal. And again, like if I'm basing Montreal beating Tampa Bay on Dobish can steal it, I kind of have to do it with Buffalo as well. So I think Dobish would be able to steal this again. I think Montreal can match the Buffalo firepower. The crowds in this series would be nuts, but I'm going to go with Montreal in that spot. Carolina taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. This one is just a feel one. Every bit of anything, I'm sure if I click this analysis tab, you could see like it is advantage. Well, goals per game is pretty well right down the middle actually. But it is advantage Carolina on basically every aspect of this series. It is just a feel that I think that the tight games that Carolina thrives in, I feel like doing that against Crosby, Malkin, and all of those guys would just come back to bite them a little bit. And there's a nostalgia feel with it. So I'm going to go Pittsburgh to win that one and make their way into the conference final. Montreal taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Again, I just think Montreal, too much firepower, too good between the pipes. If they're going to make it to this point, I'm banking on Dobish a lot here, and Fowler potentially as well. But I'm going to go Montreal on their way to the Stanley Cup Final. So now we take a look at the western portion of the bracket to kind of finish this off here. Colorado taking on the Dallas Stars. Again, tremendous series. Absolutely incredible. I kind of like Dallas here. This is banking on Heiskanen being healthy and back to normal by this point. But again, I think great trade deadline for Colorado. Incredible high-level talent that the Avalanche have. No question about it. We're splitting hairs in this. I feel like the scoring depth for Dallas helps them out a touch. And I like Ottinger. I like Ottinger in this spot. I know that there are some questions about him in the playoffs, but I mean, that's come in the conference finals against Edmonton, who have done that to a lot of goalies. So I'm picking Dallas. I'm picking Dallas over Colorado to get to the conference final. And again, no one saw this coming. Utah taking on the Anaheim Ducks. I think this would be Anaheim's time. Utah, a great run if they get into the second round and a lot to build on. Same for Anaheim. A little bit more experience on the Anaheim side. I trust the goaltending more, so I'm going to go with the Ducks to win that one. Conference final, Dallas taking on the Anaheim Ducks. This is where the Anaheim run comes to an end. Dallas, too good, too strong, too quick, too talented. I think that they can just kind of outducks the Ducks. So I would have Dallas winning what I think would probably be a pretty quick series. And then you get to the Cup Final. Dallas taking on the Montreal Canadiens, and I have the Dallas Stars as your 2026 Stanley Cup champions. So, we don't have to answer the tiebreaker question right now. That's how I have it. Dallas taking on Montreal. I'm sure there's at least 15 fan bases that would disagree with me on this one. Where are you guys? Where did I go wrong on this bracket, in your guys' opinion? Let me know, whether it's in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube, or hit me up on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky, and we can have the conversation there. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can bring Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go. Just search us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Here are the teams and players that I think are under the most pressure heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs this season. Coming in at number 5, I actually have the Colorado Avalanche. I know that they have won a Stanley Cup relatively recently and are coming off of a fantastic regular season, but Nathan MacKinnon was pretty frustrated with how things went at the end of last year in a disappointing playoff exit. I think if they have another one, not that I think they'll blow things up, I don't think Bednar's job is in jeopardy unless he just gets boat raced. Like if they lose to the Kings in the first round, then yeah, there's problems there. But I don't think it's costing anyone their job, but I do think a lot of questions are going to be asked about this team and their direction with Cale Makar coming up for a contract extension at the end of the season. Coming in at number 4 is the Vegas Golden Knights. Again, relatively recent-ish Stanley Cup winners and a lot of regular season success, but it hasn't had a good feel in Vegas this year. They fire the coach at the end of the season. They made a big splash at the beginning of the year, or I guess last offseason with Mitch Marner. They make a big splash during the season, acquiring Rasmus Andersson, and it still hasn't fixed a lot of the problems that they have had. And so if it is a quick playoff exit for Vegas, I think that there's going to be a lot on the table for this franchise going forward. Coming in at number 3, it's a player. It's Jake Ottinger. We all agree that this is one of the best goalies in the world, but since an absolutely stellar performance against the Calgary Flames, playoff-wise, he's just been okay. And if this is another series and another season where playoffs he's just okay, A, the Stars aren't going very far, and B, there's going to be some questions about this guy that are being asked. Again, I don't think Dallas moves on from him if they lose, but I do think that there are going to be a few question marks that this guy's going to have to answer, and this Stars team is going to have to answer as they have a championship-ready roster right now. At number 2, Rod Brind'Amour, coach of the Carolina Hurricanes. And again, Carolina has made the conference finals a bunch of times and has had a lot of regular season success under Rod the Bod, but it does feel like his style has a ceiling to it. And that ceiling has been get to the conference finals and basically get annihilated once you get there. They make the splash in the offseason, again, with Nikolai Ehlers. I thought there was more they could have done at the trade deadline to really bolster this lineup. But this is an elite NHL roster. And if they come up short again of even just being able to play for the Stanley Cup, I think that there are going to be some people wondering how hot that seat is under Rod Brind'Amour. And at number 1, it's the Edmonton Oilers. When you have two of the best players on the planet and no Stanley Cup championships to show for it, the pressure is on. And McDavid taking a short-term deal, that is not taking any of that pressure away from this Oilers side. I don't think it's a better team than the one they had a season ago. But again, the path to at least the conference finals is certainly easier than what the other top teams in the Western Conference have to deal with right now. So this is the time for the Oilers to try to make that push and finally get over that hump with the big bad wolf at the end. The Florida Panthers, they're not in it this year. That has been the stumbling block the last 2 years, but they have to get there. And I don't love how the roster is set up, but you got McDavid, you got Draisaitl, probably. There are no excuses. This team has to win the Stanley Cup. And it is tough because that is a very hard thing to do. And Stanley Cup or bust doesn't leave a whole lot of room for maneuvering or error or anything. But that's the situation Edmonton finds themselves in. So those are the teams that I think are under the most pressure heading into the Stanley Cup playoffs. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Let me know on social media. And we can keep the conversation going over there. The NBA playoffs tip off this weekend as well. And again, a lot of intrigue. Maybe not as many dramatic first round playoff matchups, but this is going to be a tremendous postseason in the NBA where you have the defending champions who look great again, a star on the rise who has already reached levels that people did not think he'd get to this quickly, and the guy who was holding on to, trying to anyway, the best player in the world spot, plus a lot of evenly matched sides over in the East, some veterans looking for one last push. So many storylines to look at in the NBA postseason. So let's do it. Let's dive into the NBA playoff bracket. All right, NBA playoff time. We go through a lot of tanking. We go through watching a lot of bad teams to get to this point. Now it's the time we've all been waiting for. So let's dive right in. Up first, Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the Phoenix Suns. This one doesn't need a whole lot to break down. If Phoenix wins a game, that's a massive step for them. It is OKC, and I have them in 4. I think it'd be pretty quick. All right, let's not jump too far ahead here with the jumping down, NBA.com. Up next, Lakers taking on the Houston Rockets. There is part of me that worries that the only reason I'm picking Houston is because no Luka, no Reeves. But if Luka can come back this series, I think that changes the dynamic of this incredibly. But I just think Houston is a bad matchup for the Lakers. Even if Luka gets back, it definitely gets more difficult for them, no question. But I still feel like the Rockets, I might have even picked them anyway to win this one. So I like Houston here in this spot. I think it's going to be a bit of a grind. I think it goes to a 6th game. Up next, Nuggets taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. I do think, and we did this in our quick preview a little bit before, I do think Minnesota is a difficult matchup for Denver. I do think that there are a couple of interesting looks that they can throw at them defensively that can give them some problems. And I do think offensively, the Timberwolves are able to have a pretty good time against what Denver is doing on the defensive side, but the Nuggets are just too good. And with Murray back, and we'll see what other pieces are healthy and what other ones aren't, but the Timberwolves just aren't on the level, I don't think, of the Denver Nuggets. I think that Minnesota is probably going to have to empty the clip pretty quick, and Jokic is going to be able to solve a lot of those problems. So I like the Nuggets here, taking this one down. I will say 6. I do think Minnesota is going to be able to get a couple there. Portland taking on the San Antonio Spurs. Shout out to the 2% who are all Portland Trailblazers fans, or just people putting these brackets together that are putting in every combination you could possibly think of. There's no way. Portland, it's an awesome story, what they've been able to do. Very interesting start to the year for sure, but I think their big days are ahead. They don't have anyone that, I mean, no one has anyone to slow down Victor Wembanyama. Defensively, they're going to make these a bit of a grind, and I do think San Antonio feels this series as this goes along, but I think for this one, they're going to be able to get by them, and I just don't think Portland's going to be able to score with San Antonio in the way that they would need to, so I do have the Spurs taking this one in a sweep. Let's go now to the Eastern Conference. The Pistons taking on the Orlando Magic. This is not where Orlando thought they were going to be this season. They avoid disaster by at least getting out of the play-in and getting into this, but now they face a Pistons team that can kind of do what they do and just better. The Magic are going to need best case scenario from all of their guys to hang in this one. I do think they make it a bit more competitive than a couple of the ones we see out in the West, but I do like the Pistons to come out of this, and I do think they get it in 5. Up next, it's the Cavaliers taking on the Toronto Raptors. There's homerism with this, 1,000,000,000%, and I will admit that fully. I do think for the Raptors to win this series, Scotty Barnes needs to be the best player in it. And there's a world where that happens, right? Like Scotty Barnes can just be that guy. I do think the matchup is tough for Toronto because of how dangerous the guards are for the Cavs and how not great the Raptors have been defensively with Quickly and all of that. Like, I think there will be conversations, maybe even by next week, early next week, about having Shed or Walker in the starting lineup. We're trying to get CMB in there as well to try to slow something down defensively for Cleveland. I do think that there are some unique looks that the Raptors would be able to throw at the Cavs to maybe throw it off a little bit. We've also seen Cleveland, like, all this talk about how much better they are than the Raptors and all of this. We've said that about the Cavs in playoffs past, and it has kind of fallen apart for them. I'm going to be the homer here. I am taking the Raptors because they're my team. I am admitting that, but I can at least see a world where Mitchell continues to have some playoff struggles. Harden continues to kind of disappear playoff time, and Mobley maybe doesn't step up in the way that the Cavs would need him to be competitive in this series or to win this series. So I'm going to say the Raptors need best case scenario on a lot of things, but I'm being a homer. I am admitting it. I'm going to go Raptors taking this one in 7. Who would have thought Raptors over Cavaliers in 7 games a few years ago? Up next, it's the Knicks against the Hawks. A lot of people looking at the Atlanta Hawks as a potential upset pick here. I'm not seeing it. Atlanta, it's been a great story. You love how they have stepped up in Trae Young's absence and really put together a pretty good team. It's a well-rounded group. I just feel like the Hawks' strength, the Knicks can kind of offset at least a little bit. I think when the Knicks are rolling, I don't know what the Hawks can do to stop Brunson or Cat. I think that's going to be the advantage. I am interested at some of the matchups. I think when you go Brunson with Robinson and maybe some bench pieces, I think that the Hawks really wouldn't have much for that, and then just kind of let Towns do his thing. I think there are some interesting looks that the Knicks can throw out there to get this done. I like the Knicks. I think they've put together a good roster and a good team that is set up for this time of year, and they played some very good basketball late. So I'm going to go Knicks in 6. And then Celtics against the 76ers. History, marquee teams, blue blood franchises, and all of that. I don't see the 76ers taking it here. You would need Embiid to be healthy the entire time. You can't trust that. I get like Maxey, Edgecombe, they're spunky, they're spry, all of that. Celtics get it done. I think they get it done in 5. I don't think this is going to be an overly close series. Let's now go to the semifinals then in the conferences. Thunder taking on the Rockets. Again, there's no match for it. Defensively, what the Thunder could do to any ball handler for Houston is going to look almost criminal. I think the Thunder dominate in this, so I like OKC. I will give the Rockets an extra game, but I like OKC getting through there. Next, Nuggets taking on the San Antonio Spurs. If we played this on NBA 2K, I think the Spurs take it. I do think this is where the lights would get a little bright, and some of that pressure that we've started to see in some of these younger teams have some struggles with already through the play-in. I think this is where it starts to get to the Spurs. I think this is going to be an unbelievable series, and this is going to be Wemby's the best player in the world. I think that's what we're going to come out of this thinking, but I do also think we're going to come out of this thinking the Nuggets are still a very good team. Nuggets in 7. I think Jokic and the experience they have is just going to be the difference. Out east, Pistons taking on the Toronto Raptors. I went homer for the first round. I can't in the second round. I think when you look at the guard play, there's just nothing the Raptors can do to slow down Cade Cunningham or any of the other guys on there. I feel like on the flip side of it, Detroit can kind of counter the Raptors' strengths just a little bit better than what Cleveland would be able to do. And the Pistons are just a better basketball team. So no miraculous run for the Raptors here. They fall to the Pistons, and I think probably pretty quickly. I think in 5 games. I'll give them a win in the North. It would be a marquee series in the East. Knicks taking on the Celtics. It's what these teams have kind of been battling all season long. I think we get a repeat of last year. I think the Knicks take this one. I'm high on the Knicks. I think they've played very good here late in the season. I think they've started to kind of figure things out a little bit. Obviously, we're getting closer and closer to Tatum being 100%, but I think the Celtics, again, kind of like we saw in the series last year, go hunting for mismatches with Brunson just a little bit too much. Like Brunson is almost just like a decoy out there, forcing them to try to do that, while the Knicks kind of just play their ball. They're a deeper team this year than they were last year, and I think, honestly, while some Celtics have stepped up, I think the Knicks might be deeper than the Celtics, so I like New York to advance here in a great series. I think it goes 7. Conference Finals. It's the matchup we've wanted all year. It's the Thunder taking on the Denver Nuggets. Oklahoma City are just so good, and so few weaknesses. There is part of me that's like, look, we're sleeping on Denver too much. Like, I feel like people are underrating the Nuggets to a point where I want to take them and be like, no. Listen, this team is scary. watch out for them, but I just can't get there. Oklahoma City, they've done it to everyone. They are deep. They can throw everything defensively at the Nuggets, where Denver, I don't think, would be able to slow down OKC in that way. Denver protecting the basketball, I think, would help them, but Oklahoma City gets this done. It'll be a great series. I think it goes 6. I also think I have the Thunder playing 9 games leading into that, while the Nuggets have 2 battles in the first 2 rounds. I think that helps them out. Pistons taking on the New York Knicks. Again, I'm on the Knicks. I just, the last couple games of the season, and maybe it's tricking me because, I mean, Boston was sitting guys in that game that they played. And I understand that. But I feel like they're a deeper team. I feel like when you go down to clutch time, either way, I guess, Brunson can be that dude. And I think the one thing they need to figure out is when Brunson and Cat are on the floor, getting Cat a little bit more engaged early on. But if Mitchell Robinson is healthy, it just gives this team a different dynamic that I don't know if there's many teams in the East that can handle. So I like the Knicks here in 6. So then we get to the NBA Finals. It is the Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the New York Knicks. And while, yes, I have been high on the Knicks the entire road, there is no one, and I do mean no one, that can handle what this Oklahoma City team can present. There's no way I can pick against OKC here. I think the Thunder get it done. I think the Knicks get one in the Garden, and that's it. So Oklahoma City, I have them as your NBA champions for the 2026 season. Again, there's at least 15 franchises that are going to be disagreeing with me a little bit. I don't know. Portland may not put up much of a fight, actually, on this. But where do you guys disagree with me? Let me know in the comments, and we can keep the basketball conversation going. Also, watching this on YouTube, hit that share button, and let's spread the word of Couch Potato Diary. Really trying to grow something here, and really trying to grow the channel. So hit that share button, and hit up your basketball fan friends. If you want to use it as trash talk, that's fantastic. If you just want to use it as, this guy's dumb, let's talk about how dumb he is, that's fine too. I disagree, but that's fine too. But we can keep that conversation going. Hit that share button, and hit me up on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. UFC 327 was an interesting night, to say the least, and some fighters really improved their stock, while others have some work to do. Let's take a look at the stock watch for the UFC after their latest offering on pay-per-view in Canada, and I guess PLE down everywhere else. So UFC 327 now behind us. Here is the stock watch. We'll start on the negative. The down arrow pointing for Dominic Reyes. Yes, it's a win, but it's one where a lot of people were talking about how underwhelming the fight was when it was done. That's not great. So I feel like Dominic Reyes, at a time where things are opening up at 205 pounds again, I feel like he kind of needed a bit more of an exclamation mark on his performance to get that done. And so if we're going to put him there, we have to put Johnny Walker as well, as the fall continues for a guy who was once an exciting and very interesting fighter in the UFC. I don't think he moves the needle much anymore, and I don't think this performance at UFC 327 helps him out either. And then number 1 on the down list, I think it has to be Jiri Prochazka. When you have me and others talking about the gigantic choke job that it was, and you get knocked out by a dude whose knee just exploded, that's not awesome. And that is really going to hurt. And now we could be looking at an interim title situation, and I don't know if there's many people who are going to be calling for Prochazka to step into that spot. So he is the one who I think his stock took the biggest hit coming out of UFC 327. As far as the ones who are trending up, the arrow is pointing way up for Aaron Pico. A brilliant performance against Patricio Pitbull on the undercard of UFC 327. That's the guy that everyone has been wanting to see. It was an underwhelming UFC debut, but now that he's got that out of the way and puts on a very good performance against a very real fighter in the UFC, it's back on track for this dude. And it is maybe too much too soon, but I am looking for a pretty significant step up in competition for him and just kind of assuming that he's back on track. This one, maybe it feels weird to say this about a guy retiring, but Cub Swanson, a fantastic way to go out for his career, and I love that he got some flowers, and I love that he got celebrated in the octagon after and just throughout the fight week. So it's more a career up arrow for Cub Swanson, who gets to end this thing on a high note. But number one, it has to be Carlos Ulberg, the new, undisputed for now, light heavyweight champion of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, getting one of the all-timer knockout wins over Jiri Prochazka and picking up the dub there. He has been progressing to this moment, and he finally comes up with a big one. So Carlos Ulberg is the one who has the arrow pointing up the most, coming out of UFC 327. Was I unfair to anyone in here, or did I miss anybody? Let me know. If you're watching on YouTube, hit me up in the comments, and we can keep the conversation going there. If you are listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, hit me up on social media. I'm at Primetime Klein, and we can keep chatting about everything over there. Also, just want to let you guys know, we do have a tip jar here with Couch Potato Diary. If you want to help support the show, just watching is amazing. If you want to hit that subscribe button on YouTube or subscribe, follow, whatever, on the whatever podcast app you are listening to, that would be great. But if you want to be able to help out financially, there is a tip jar. It is in the link in the description of whatever you are watching with Couch Potato Diary, or however you are consuming this here with Couch Potato. It would just really help us to be able to put this stuff out on a bit more of a consistent basis as we continue to try to grow the channel here.